Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be breaking down UPS, his earnings breakdown from what happened from the recent earnings and what's going to be a 2026 outlook in terms of guidance and what really stood out from the call, what it could mean from the stock going forward, and also my personal view if it's a buy, sell or hold, especially when I own this stock in particular in my portfolio and unfortunately looking a little bit bleak in it, but I'm looking forward to going over what has happened. So, UPS Q4 2025 earnings results. I am going to say a big thanks to Earnings Guy, who is on Twitter. If you want to go and follow him, his @ is on the screen. He does some really good graphs, ones that I've especially took on here, which is basically explained in an easy way of what we're going to go through. And that is the strong fourth quarter numbers and results, basically. It beat expectations on both revenue and earnings, as you can see. The revenue came in just below 24.5 billion, and its non-GAAP adjusted earnings were per share, basically, were $2.38, when the analysts were expecting $2.20 and only 24 billion in terms of revenue. So as you can see, beat by 8% and beat by 2% respectively. Now, they also delivered, which I didn't actually put on the screen, they've also delivered a operating profit of roughly 2.6 billion dollars, signaling a solid profitability despite market headwinds. Because, as you might know, and if you don't already, and you've been unfortunately living under a rock, UPS has been, let's just say, going downhill in terms of stock price, at least anyway, in terms of the unions and so forth. So for the full year, that means 2025, UPS generated around about 88.7 billion in revenue and returned 6.4 billion to shareholders through dividends and buybacks. Now that's a beat on numbers, but unfortunately the stock didn't really act that great, and to be fair, it didn't really move on earnings day. It was only up by like 3-4%, but realistically came back down straight after. So let's have a look at why possibly that could be a reason. So this is the highlights that I could probably think of that isn't or is riskily causing the stock price to go up and down. So I think surpassed expectations is a good one, like especially with the quarterly EPS and revenue for both beat forecasts, showing it navigated through the decline volume from Amazon. And as you can see, UPS expects around 89.7 billion in revenue for the full year of 2026. It expects to be around 9.6 margins for the year, and it's described as a transition year. So basically, what I call a bathtub dynamic. So volume pressures are already in the year, so it's going to be tough to improve on that. But as soon as we keep adding water to your bath, nice warm water, you're adding the soap, you're adding what your bath bombs into the bath, and it's going up and up, and it's getting ready to jump in because there's enough water and it's looking nice and warm and cozy. Then that's a great bath to jump in, and that is what basically the management has described, and what I feel like is the best way to describe it. So hopefully by the end of the year, the bath will be ready, and the stock should be ready to go up and up now, especially near the end of 2026, going into 2027. So hopefully I'm right on that, especially when I feel like they can deliver on the transition year on terms of making more profit, be able to make more money. So I definitely think that's going to be a nice, good reason. Now, you can feel free to pause this if I do go over too quickly, but I'm hoping I shouldn't. Operation segments. So shipments are looking like they're going to be staying flat, but the price per piece of boxes or like deliveries are going up. So that should offset that basically. So high revenue in terms of per piece, even though the volume is dropping. Now, there was a key element that was mentioned, and that was international revenue is expected to grow modestly. Now, a lot of like UPS, FedEx do rely on China. Now, that'd be something to look out for in a year, because I believe the volumes did drop over near the end of the year. So that's something to be looking for, be a bit cautious about. Now, this is what I think UPS is now. UPS, I don't think is really a blue chip in terms of growth wise. Like UPS likes it because it was growth and also a dividend. Now I just think it's a dividend stock. That is probably because the stock price has gone so far down that the dividend yield is like nearly at 6. I think it's like 6%, nearly 7%. Now, UPS isn't backing down on the dividend. So, and free cash flow is needing to cover what the dividends are. And that was close this year. It just about covered. But it's a good sign that they've expected to say that free cash flow is going to be 6.5 billion. Now, dividends are going to be 5.4, so that would cover dividends. But they think capital expenditures is going to be around $3 billion, and they might be doing buybacks, which might not be great if we're only covering 6.5 of that with free cash flow, because then it means we have to dip into debt and so on. But hopefully, free cash flow is still going to grow, and that will cover dividends at least anyway, because I think that's what most people invest UPS in for at this moment in time. So pretty much as I put to the bottom, I don't think 2026 is going to be a breakout growth year, or at least yet anyway. We need to stabilize, it needs to restructure, and it needs to grow with the expectations of better performance later on. So what to look for as an investor? Well, this is what I think you should. It's volume trends, pricing power, margins and costs, growth, and basically inflection signals like 2026. Watch for signs that the bathtub bottom has turned out, especially mid to late 2026 improvements in volumes or margins. Now, basically, as well, I think UPS, as I said, the guidance for 2026 is important to understand how it's going to unfold. So, as mentioned, UPS expects revenue to grow 89.7 billion in revenue, margins at 9.6. Now, we just need to make sure that the shipments still grow, or even so, if it stays flat, the pricing power is high. We need to basically hope that people still use UPS as a delivery service, because Amazon is growing, FedEx is growing, and I think FedEx has adapted very well in terms of the Amazon competition. But Amazon doing Amazon is quite worrying, because I don't think UPS is stuck in their old times, and we need to hopefully see them change that and adapt, which I think they are. And I think there is good positive signs that it's going to come out to so. So, what do you mean by volume trends? Well, are volumes of parcels stabilizing, or are they growing? And is it US domestic average daily volume? Like, is that growing, or is that declining? Because UPS is mainly a US customer. They do internationals, but most of them parcels come from the US. Now, as I mentioned, pricing power is revenue per piece. So if the offset flat volume, so it can offset that basically, the flat volume, So if the volume stay flat and the pricing increases, then of course pricing strength is a positive sign, because you make more money despite the volume being flat. Margins and costs. Operating margins trends normally tell you whether cost reductions and network changes are paying off, because as you can see, UPS are trying to grow their profits by cutting jobs, cutting warehouses, and so on. International growth, as we mentioned, it's still a US stock and a customer, because it's mainly from there, but international growth they are growing into. So low single-digit growth internationally indicates a diversification beyond the US parcel market. So we need to make sure they're still growing on that. Now, is UPS a buy, sell, or hold, in my opinion? Now, please remember at the start of the video, there is a disclaimer. I am not a financial expert. I am not a financial person to rely on to give you an opinion in terms of I'm going to tell you this is a stock to buy. This is strictly my opinion. I do own UPS, and I do hope for the future, but please make sure you do your own research before deciding on doing a buy, sell, or including holding if you already own UPS. But I still think that for long-term investors, this is a good stock to be focused on for income and stability. UPS could be a hold or to buy on dips, especially if you're collecting dividends or believe margins will improve later in 2026. And for short-term traders, I think it's likely a hold or probably stay clear until you see a volume inflection or stronger growth signals. But why do I think it's a bullish case? Well, The consistent dividends and strong cash flow makes UPS appealing for income-oriented investors. Margin discipline and pricing power will help with volume volatility, and the international and supply chain service growth adds diversification, so it's not reliant on US customers. The only problems that I have a worry about is flat volume and ongoing network reconfigurations, especially that will cut short-term performance. So I'm hoping to see UPS play and deliver on what they're going to say is the transition year. So, what do you think the UPS is going to do this year? So, do you think they can bounce back strongly, or in the volume stabilize, or do you think they're not going to deliver and they're just going to fall and down? I hope not, because I do believe in the management, despite the recent concerns in the last few quarters. But I do believe that this stock could be a nice one to look at. So I hope you guys did enjoy, and if you found this very useful, then of course leave a like, hit the subscribe button. I've got plenty of more stock deep dives coming your way, and I have some already posted on the channel, which you can find on the end screen at the end of the video. All links down below. Hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.